Isaiah 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. My child, before you continue listening, I want you to take a slow breath, not because your problems have disappeared, not because everything is suddenly fixed, but because I need you to remember something you have forgotten. You are not facing this battle alone. Lately, your mind has been racing. You have been thinking about the future, thinking about the bills, thinking about the family situation, thinking about the relationship, thinking about the diagnosis, thinking about the uncertainty. And every day the same fear keeps returning. The fear that something terrible is about to happen. The fear that the thing you've been dreading will finally become reality. The fear that the worst-case scenario is waiting around the corner. My child, I know that fear. I know how often it visits you. I know how many nights it has stolen from you. I know how many times you have smiled in front of people while quietly carrying anxiety inside. I know how many times you have looked calm on the outside while feeling overwhelmed on the inside. And that is why I brought you to this message today. Because the thing you fear most is controlling too much of your life. It is affecting your sleep, your joy, your confidence, your relationships, your faith. And I want to break its power right now, not next year, not next month, today. Because fear was never meant to be your guide, faith was. Fear predicts disaster. Faith trusts God. Fear imagines defeat. Faith remembers my promises. Fear keeps looking at the storm. Faith keeps looking at me. My child, there are people listening right now who are afraid of losing something, afraid of losing their health, afraid of losing their job, afraid of losing someone they love, afraid of losing stability, afraid of losing the future they imagined. And because of that fear, they have stopped enjoying the blessings they still have today. The enemy loves when that happens, because if he cannot destroy your future, he will try to steal your present. He will whisper, "What if it all falls apart? What if things get worse? What if you're not strong enough? What if God doesn't come through?" And those whispers become so loud that eventually they sound like truth, but they are not truth. They are fear. And fear is a terrible prophet. Fear has predicted thousands of disasters that never happened. Fear has convinced millions of people that defeat was coming, when victory was actually closer than they realized. And today I want you to understand something. The thing you fear most is not greater than the God who holds your future. Joseph, imagine the fear he must have felt. One day he was surrounded by family. The next day he was thrown into a pit. One day he had dreams. The next day he was being sold as a slave. One day he believed his future was bright. The next day everything looked broken. If Joseph had listened to fear, he would have believed his story was over. Fear would have told him, "Your dream is dead. God forgot you. You will never recover from this. You will spend the rest of your life here." But fear was wrong, because while Joseph was looking at the prison, God was looking at the palace. While Joseph was looking at the chains, God was preparing influence. While Joseph was looking at the setback, God was building the setup. And maybe that is exactly what is happening in your life right now. You keep looking at the problem. God keeps looking at the purpose. You keep looking at the delay. God keeps looking at the destiny. You keep looking at what is missing. God keeps looking at what is coming. My child, just because you cannot see the plan does not mean there is no plan. Just because you do not understand the season does not mean the season is meaningless. Joseph spent years not understanding, yet every difficult chapter was leading somewhere, and your story is no different. The chapter you are living right now is not the final chapter. The fear you feel right now is not the final verdict, because God is still writing your story, and He is far from finished. Klamen ten ni ding, through the Psalm 34:4. I sought the Lord, and He answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. My child, the enemy does not always attack through circumstances. Sometimes he attacks through imagination. He places images in your mind, scenarios, possibilities, worst-case outcomes, and then he convinces you they are inevitable. He makes tomorrow's problems feel more real than today's blessings. He makes uncertainty feel like certainty. He makes fear feel like wisdom. But fear and wisdom are not the same thing. Wisdom prepares, fear paralyzes. Wisdom seeks God, fear seeks control. Wisdom trusts, fear obsesses. And lately, you have been carrying fears that were never meant to live inside your heart. Some of you are afraid that the relationship will never heal. Some are afraid the financial pressure will never end. Some are afraid of a medical report. Some are afraid of growing older alone. Some are afraid they missed God's plan. Some are afraid they waited too long. Some are afraid they are not enough, and every day those fears grow because they are constantly fed. You replay them, analyze them, study them, imagine them, until eventually the fear becomes larger than reality itself. But my child, the thing that keeps visiting your mind is not necessarily your future. It is simply your fear, and fear has lied to you many times before. Remember that. How many things did you worry about 5 years ago that never happened? How many disasters did your mind create that never became reality? How many sleepless nights were spent fighting battles that never arrived? Fear promised destruction, yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still moving forward, still alive, because fear was wrong. Again, David and Goliath. Think about David. Everyone around him was afraid. The army was afraid. The soldiers were afraid. The leaders were afraid. Even experienced warriors were afraid. For 40 days they listened to Goliath. 40 days of intimidation. 40 days of fear. 40 days of believing the giant was unbeatable. Then David arrived. And David saw something everyone else missed. The giant was real, but God was bigger. The problem wasn't that the giant existed. The problem was that everyone had been staring at the giant so long they forgot to look at God. And perhaps that is exactly what has happened to you. You have stared at the problem so long that it feels enormous. You have focused on the fear so long that it feels unbeatable. You have looked at the obstacle so long that it feels permanent. But David teaches us something powerful. The size of the giant does not determine the outcome. The size of your God does. The giant was bigger than David, but God was bigger than the giant. And whatever you're facing today, God is still bigger. Bigger than the diagnosis, bigger than the debt, bigger than the loneliness, bigger than the uncertainty, bigger than the fear. Got that? Psalm 56:3. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Notice what David said. He didn't say, I never get afraid. He said, when I am afraid. Even great people experience fear. Even strong believers experience fear. Even spiritual people experience fear. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is choosing God despite fear. Faith is saying, I don't know how this will work out, but I trust God. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I trust God. I don't know why this happened, but I trust God. That is faith, and that kind of faith changes everything. My child, I know there are nights when your thoughts become louder than my promises. Nights when anxiety feels stronger than peace. Nights when you wonder if anything will ever change. And during those nights, fear often asks one question: What if everything goes wrong? But today I want to ask you a different question. What if everything goes right? What if God opens a door? What if the prayer gets answered? What if the breakthrough is closer than you think? What if God is working behind the scenes right now? What if the thing you're afraid of never happens? What if God's plan is bigger than your fear? Because, my child, your fear is not the only possible future. God's promise is also a possibility. And unlike fear, God has a perfect track record. He has never failed, not once. Job's darkest season, Job experienced pain few people can understand. Loss, confusion, heartbreak, questions, silence. There were moments when nothing made sense. Moments when the future looked impossible. Moments when fear could have consumed him completely. And perhaps some of you know exactly what that feels like. Because right now your life does not look the way you expected. You imagined things differently. You imagined a different outcome, a different timeline, a different season. Yet here you are, still waiting, still hoping, still wondering. But Job discovered something important. God's silence is not God's absence. Just because God seems quiet does not mean he is gone. Just because answers are delayed does not mean prayers are denied. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean God is not moving, because some of the greatest miracles begin in silence. The seed grows in silence. The child develops in silence. The sunrise begins before anyone notices, and often God's greatest work starts long before anyone can see it, including you. Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him. My child, today I want you to stop feeding the fear. Stop rehearsing the disaster. Stop imagining defeat. Stop living inside tomorrow's problems. Come back to today. Come back to my promises. Come back to my presence. Because while fear is telling you that everything is falling apart, God is quietly putting things together. While fear is telling you that you're finished, God is preparing a new chapter. While fear is telling you there is no way forward, God is already making a way. And one day, you will look back at this season and realize something. The thing you feared most never happened. Because God was protecting you in ways you could not see. And God was working in places you never knew existed. And he is still working right now. 1 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, and of love, and of a sound mind. Claim, my child, there is a battle taking place inside you right now. Not in your workplace, not in your bank account, not in your family, inside your mind. Because fear rarely starts in circumstances. Fear starts in thoughts. And if fear can control your thoughts long enough, it can begin controlling your decisions. The enemy understands something many people do not. He does not always need to destroy your future. Sometimes all he needs to do is convince you that your future is already destroyed. Because if he can make you believe defeat is inevitable, you will start living like someone who has already lost. You will stop taking chances, stop believing, stop hoping, stop expecting good things from God, and eventually you will build a prison from fears that never became reality. My child, that is not the life I created for you. I did not create you to live in constant fear. I created you to walk in faith, and faith begins when you stop listening to fear's predictions and start listening to God's promises. There are people listening to this message right now who have become experts at expecting bad news. When the phone rings unexpectedly, you assume something is wrong. When someone says they need to talk, you assume the worst. When a problem appears, you immediately imagine disaster. You have trained your mind to prepare for pain, because somewhere along the way, life hurt you deeply. Disappointment visited repeatedly. People broke promises. Situations changed unexpectedly. and slowly your heart learned to expect loss. But my child, the future is not required to repeat the past. Just because something happened before does not mean it will happen again. Just because one door closed does not mean every door will close. Just because one person left does not mean everyone will leave. Just because one season was painful does not mean every season will be painful. Fear wants you to believe history will repeat itself. God wants you to believe He can create something new. Peter walking on water. Peter walking on water. Think about Peter. He stepped out of the boat and did something impossible. For a moment he experienced a miracle. He walked on water, but then something happened. His attention shifted. Instead of looking at Jesus, he started looking at the storm, the wind, the waves, the danger. And the moment fear became his focus, he started sinking. Many of you are living in that exact moment right now. You were doing well. You were trusting God. You were moving forward. Then suddenly, the storm got your attention. The financial pressure, the medical concern, the relationship problem, the uncertainty, and now fear is pulling your eyes away from God. My child, the storm has not become stronger than God. You have simply spent too much time looking at it, because whatever you focus on becomes larger in your mind. If you focus on fear, fear grows. If you focus on God, faith grows. Peter's miracle didn't stop because Jesus disappeared. It stopped because Peter shifted his focus. And today God is calling you to shift your focus back, not onto the problem, onto the one who controls the outcome. Philippians 31. Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. Notice that word. Immediately. Jesus did not wait. Jesus did not hesitate. Jesus did not abandon Peter, and He has not abandoned you either. The same hand that lifted Peter is still able to lift you. The same power that calmed the sea is still working today. The same God who performed miracles then is still performing miracles now. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are not beyond restoration. My child, I know some of you are exhausted, not physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You are tired of fighting the same battle, tired of carrying the same burden, tired of facing the same fear, tired of waiting for answers, tired of pretending everything is okay. And perhaps the hardest part is that nobody knows how tired you really are. People see your smile, but they don't see the pressure. They hear your voice, but they don't hear the anxiety. They watch you function, but they don't see the struggle. Yet God sees all of it. Every hidden burden, every silent prayer, every private tear, every sleepless night. Nothing has escaped His attention. Nothing.